While the Hurricanes may be off, Locked On Hurricanes is still going strong, and we are going to look back at the 3 stars in November for the Carolina Hurricanes as we flip into December. Who makes it? Well, we'll talk about it on a Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everyday for making this your first listen of the day. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes as we are part of the #1 sports podcast network. I'm your host, Zach Martin, the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Writers. Also the co-host of the Surgecast. There's a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast along with all my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. On the Tuesday edition of the show, we're going to be going over the 3 stars of November for the Canes. Go look at Shayne Gostisbehere, Brandon Bussi, and Seth Jarvis, while also making a debate on if Sebastian Aho should have been part of the 3 stars, or maybe he should have been the #1 spot, or also maybe both guys should have been on the list. But we will talk about all of that. But before we do, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Now, we are going to start with Shayne Gostisbehere as the 3rd star for the Carolina Hurricanes. We're going to go 3, 2, 1 in terms of this episode. And for Shayne Gostisbehere, while he only played in 10 games out of the 15 for the Hurricanes, because due to injury, he still found a way to be a big contributor for the team in that span. Because you're talking about a guy who had a 3-game point streak at one point where he had 5 points in 3 games. He had 3 assists in 1 game against the winner over Vancouver, and then had back-to-back games with multi-points, and that was against the Rangers in Winnipeg on the 26th and the 20th in between around Thanksgiving. But overall in November, Shayne Gostisbehere in 10 games, 2 goals, 9 assists for 11 points, did finish with a +1, 2 power play goals, which did come in back-to-back games. Of course, that was the Buffalo and the Rangers' unfortunate back-to-back losses. 8 even strength, 1 power play goal, 24 shots, 8.3% shooting percentage. But the fact, too, is if you look at it, ice time, 219 minutes and 51 seconds over those 10 games. He averaged 22 minutes and 59 seconds, 8 blocks, 6 hits. For Shayne Gostisbehere, for the fact that you look at what he did that in 10 games, and that accumulates in a season where he is second in defenseman in goals, because right now the only defenseman ahead of him is Sean Walker, has 4. But in terms of assists, Shayne Gostisbehere is the most assists for a defenseman, second on the team entirely, 1 behind Sebastian Aho. Then if you look at points, Shayne Gostisbehere leads the entire team in points with 18, 3rd on the team in total behind Jarvis and Aho. Plus-minus wise, Ghost is tied for 3rd with Taylor Hall with a +9. The only guys ahead of him are Mike Riley's +11 and Alexander Nikishin's +15. And Shayne Gostisbehere's 2 power play goals, 2nd on the entire team, only behind Andrei Svechnikov, and leads all defensemen there too. So if you look at the season as a whole and just the month of November, Shayne Gostisbehere, while playing in fewer games in the month, played 5 games fewer than everyone else who played all 15, still over a point per game, still was a plus, it was still a big contributor for the team. Like I said, he had 9 assists in the month. And on top of that, too, the fact that he had multiple point games. Like I said, he had 2 stretches of having 3-game point streaks. That's pretty impressive for the fact that he had 5 total points in between the Washington, Vancouver, Edmonton games, and then points against Buffalo, the Rangers, and Winnipeg, and that's another 5 points. Like, he scored a good amount of points in 2 different stretches out of this month, and that's just because of the fact of how good he was for the Carolina Hurricanes. And like I said, scored 2 power play goals in back-to-back games. It's pretty impressive. And, there could be the argument of, okay, well, what about guys like Nikolai Ehlers, or like we'll talk about later in the last segment about, should Aho and Jarvis been on this list? You could definitely make those arguments for some other guys that, maybe Andrei Svechnikov or like I said, Ehlers, or having both of your top guys up there too. But for me, I think when you look at the 3 stars, and I did this, go check out the recent article I did for the Hockey Writers where I do a more written format of it, talking about this. But for me, it's like you could easily put all your top points guys as your stars and stuff like that and be like, okay, there you go. And that's kind of easy to do. But for me, it's how I look at it is, yeah, your point guys are going to be there, but that's kind of an easy way to go about it. Like, okay, well, if this guy's got 15 points in the month, or if this guy's got 13 points in the month, then okay, there you go. And then you're kind of done with it. I think you got to look at the overall, how many points they put up. You got to look at the impact they've had, what, certain guys for how many minutes they've put in and stuff like that. Shayne Gostisbehere, in 5 fewer games than everyone else played, he was still a point per game. And yeah, you could say, okay, well, he had, 3 games total that were multi-point games where he had a goal and assist here, or 2 assists, or 3 assists, and that was it. And then, yeah, you had 2 like separate occasions where he had, points in 3 consecutive games, and that's the majority of his points. Okay, yeah, but that's still a huge moment in a game where you go 3 assists in 1 game, or 2 assists in a game and stuff like that. It's about, what he's done for the team, offensively and defensively, for the fact that, yeah, he's not a guy who throws a lot of hits or blocks a lot of shots, but he contributed in that way. He averaged almost 23 minutes in 10 games as a guy who doesn't really average that many minutes, but, scoring on the power play, getting assists, even strength in the power play. Like I said, he's a point per game guy in the month of November alone. If you look at just the season, he's only played in 16 games, but he's 18 points in those 16 games. He's almost a point per game guy just on the assists alone. He's got 15 assists in 16 games. When Shayne Gostisbehere is playing, he's been really great for the Carolina Hurricanes. I think getting him back has definitely helped the Hurricanes in terms of offensively on the power play, even strength and stuff like that. So that's why for me, it's just, yeah, the points are a factor in how to look at 3 stars, but also what is your impact off the score sheet that's beneficial too. And Shayne Gostisbehere has been doing that for the Carolina Hurricanes, to where he has done the little things off the score sheet. Yeah, maybe he might not get an assist or a goal, but he's done enough plays to, defensively, like his defensive game has gotten better with the Carolina Hurricanes, because, he did it all last year, and now he's had a bigger role this year playing, top 4 minutes, and he's done it with different defensive partners, but he's got the job done. And I think that's contributing to where it's offensively, he's been a big asset for the Hurricanes. Because like I said, when you look at when he's in the lineup, he's over a point per game alone, and then assist-wise, he's almost there too. Like, I think he's having a very underrated season in terms of defense, but it's just for the fact that, you look at what, Keandre Miller or Alexander Nikishin's done, or what Mike Riley's done plus-minus-wise, or Sean Walker and stuff like that, Jalen Chatfield. But I think Ghost has been really a guy who has been very good. I know Hurricanes, media and fans are talking about it, but I think overall, I think Gostisbehere's had a season where it's like, hey, don't forget about this guy, because when he's in the lineup, he's over a point per game. He's playing really well for the Hurricanes. So, yeah, like I said, you could have an argument of like an Andrei Svechnikov or Nikolai Ehlers, or maybe putting Aho and Jarvis in the top 3. Yeah, you could definitely say that. But I think just for what he's done in fewer amount of games does show an impact for what Shayne Gostisbehere has done for the Carolina Hurricanes, to where, like I said, back-to-back games with the power play goal, 2 stretches of 3 game point streaks, and multiple game points as well. I think that's a great way to, put yourself into a 3rd star spot, and doing it in fewer games. But let me know what you guys think in the comments if you're on YouTube or on social media. Would you put Shayne Gostisbehere in the 3 stars despite being, playing fewer games, but is, point per game guy, has done, on and off the score sheets? Let me know in the comments what you think. Now, we talk about Shayne Gostisbehere, but we're not going to talk about a guy who I think has really shown out for the Carolina Hurricanes. I think is definitely worthy of a second start, despite only having 4 starts in the month of November. So stick around and we'll talk about Brandon Bussi here in a second on a Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet on next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Now, we talk about Shayne Gostisbehere as the 3-star. The second star, for me, it has to be Brandon Bussi. I know he's only played in 4 games the entire month of November for the Canes. You're talking November 9th against Toronto, and then he didn't get another start until the 21st against Winnipeg, the 28th against Winnipeg, and then the 30th against Calgary, where it's the first time in his career where he started in consecutive games. And the thing, too, is you look at the season overall for Brandon Bussi is crazy to look at. You're looking at a guy who's in 8 starts, 7-1, 2.11 goals against average, a 907 save percentage. He's made 166 saves on 183 shots, given up 17 goals. He just earned his first ever shutout against the Calgary Flames on Sunday to wrap up the month of November, and that was in an overtime game. And on top of that, too, he's got an assist that he had back against the New York Islanders on October 30th, which is pretty good as well for him, how he did that. And on top of that, too, he's played in 482 minutes and 45 seconds of ice time. Second most on the team, of course, because the fact that Kochetkov has been out once again. He's only played in 5 games, 247 minutes. But Brandon Bussi has done that all season long, where he's made very big saves for the Carolina Hurricanes, and you heard Rod Brind'Amour say it after the shutout win. Brandon Bussi has been very good for the Carolina Hurricanes when he's had those opportunities. They've been putting him in some weird spots where he starts games here and there, then waits a while, gets a start, waits another week to get a start, and then all of a sudden you get 2 starts in 3 days, because that's just how good you've been playing. But when you look at the month of November, 4-0 in the month, 242 minutes and 52 seconds in the net, only gave up 8 goals in 4 games, which is crazy to think about. That means he's averaging 2 goals over that stretch. 68 saves in those 4 games, which is basically on average 17. 19 shots on average, 76 total. Here's the crazy part. His save percentage in 895. That's an 800 and 893 and 923 and a 1,000 save in those 4 games. Obviously, it was weird with Toronto because he had 16 saves on 20 shots, got him to 800, 25 saves on 28 shots for 893 against Winnipeg, 12 of 13 for 923, and of course 15 for 15. And that's the one thing about the Carolina Hurricanes, and when you look at the save percentage, and that's why for me, I always have to tell people, don't ever look at the Hurricanes goalie save percentage a whole lot and take a lot of stock in it, because you see, like, you hear the results. 20 shots, 28 shots, 13 shots, 15 shots. They are limiting other teams to not putting up a lot of shots on goal against their goalies. In his other starts, 17 shots against the Sharks, 28 against the Kings, 34 against Dallas, 28 against the Islanders. Those are some of the rare games where you're getting a little bit higher and stuff like that. But, you know, a 941 save, 893, 912, 929. That's what the 4 starts he had in October looked like. and he went 3-1 in that span. And then he goes and has a 4-0 month of November where he's an 895 save percentage. Yeah, that doesn't sound like, well, that's not 900. How is that good? But he gave up 8 goals in 4 games, and he faced a total of 76 shots. That's how your save percentage is, below 900. But when you look at his goals against average, it's only a 1.98. That's why when you look at the save percentage, okay, why is it's less than 900? How's that really ideal for a goalie? Well, because the Hurricanes aren't giving a lot of shots, and if you give up 1, 3, 4 goals, but you're only seeing 12, 25, 16 shots, then yeah, your save percentage is going to go down. But let's say you have, 26 to 28, that's a 929. If you save 31 to 34, that's still a 912. 16 to 17, 941. You get the picture here. If the number is higher, but your number is a little bit close, then yeah, you can have a 900 save percentage. But if it's 3 on 28, then yeah, you're less than 900. That's an 893. So that's the point when you look at this is Brandon Bussi for me is the second star for the Hurricanes because he's gotten you 8 more points because of the fact that he's won 4 games. That's pretty dang impressive for a guy who came in, was a waiver pickup like 3 days before the season starts. He's a pickup on the 5th. First game is the 9th, so you're talking 4 days in between. Pierre Kachekov doesn't start the season. He's essentially the backup for the Hurricanes. Gets 4 starts, has a really good October where he goes 3-1. Has 3 games of a 900 save percentage or better. Gets his first ever NHL point. Like this is like his first 4 games of his entire NHL career came in games 3, 5, 8, and 10. And then you look at what happened in November. He plays in games 15, 21, 24, 25. So between the 21st and the 30th, in the span of 9 days, he's had 3 starts and has gone 4-0 and gets his first NHL shutout in his 8th game. He is 7-1 with, like I said, a 907 save and a 211 goals against in 8 career starts in the NHL. That's why for me, if you look at November, Brandon Bussi is the second star because if you back on when I did the 3 stars of October for the hockey writers, I had Brandon Bussi as the third star because hey, 3-1, that's a great start to your career. That's why that's why sometimes stats are great, but if you have a performance where you're like, hey, it's the story around it too. Like Shayne Gostisbehere missed 5 games, still was a point per game guy. Brandon Bussi never started in the NHL, goes 3-1 in his first 4 starts in October. Now he goes and plays 4 games in November. He goes 4-0. He's on a 5-game winning streak that dates back to October as well. So that's how much of a run he's been on with the Carolina Hurricanes. That the last game of October on the 30th against the Islanders, he gets the win in that 6-2 game and then proceeds to win the next 4 in November. 5-4, 4-3, 5-1, 1-0. He's gotten wins for the Carolina Hurricanes, and that's why I have him as the second star of November, because of the fact that he's picked up 8 more wins for the Hurricanes. He's picked up 8 points in 4 games. And then overall for the season, 14 points that he's added to the team total because he's won 7 games. Now, did the team have to help him out a little bit more? Yeah, but there's some games where he stole them too. So for me, if you have a goalie playing that well, he definitely deserves to be in the 3 stars. And if he plays to where he has a winning, where he goes undefeated and is on a winning streak in the way he's been playing too, and gets his first ever shutout, yeah, definitely deserving a second star for me in terms of how that looks out. So, like I said, for Shayne Gostisbehere, let me know in the comments if you're on YouTube or on social media. Let me know, do you feel Brandon Bussi should be the second star, or at least in the 3-star conversation? I definitely think he is well deserving to be in the 3-star conversation for the month of November, and I think he definitely deserves to be number 2. But let me know what you guys think. Now, we talked about Shayne Gostisbehere in segment 1 as the 3rd star. Brandon Bussi is the 2nd star in segment 2. But what do we talk about in the last segment of the show in the first star, where there could be a massive debate on either one of these guys being the first star or both these guys should have been in the 3-star conversation. So we'll talk about Seth Jarvis and Sebastian Aho here in a second on a Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. When I'm hydrated, everything just works better. My focus, energy, mood, even my skin. That's why I've been using Drip Drop. It's doctor-developed hydration that keeps me running at full power no matter what my day looks like. Drip Drop isn't your average sports drink. It delivers 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar, or 0 sugar if you get that brand, which is my favorite. Using a science-backed formula tested by medical professionals, 5 fires in over 90% of top colleges and pro teams. And the thing is, it actually tastes really amazing. My go-to flavor is the watermelon, but I also like the passion fruit, lemon, lime, stuff like that. They're all really good. And it's become my secret weapon for staying sharp and energized through the long days. Hydration has become a non-negotiable for me. Drip Drop helps me feel sharper, calmer, and honestly, just better overall. So right now, Drip Drop is offering podcast listeners 20% off your first order. Go to dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONNHL for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard or it gets cold. You might need a little extra boost to kind of help you be energized during those cold days. But also keep your body and mind performing at their best with Drip Drop. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So we talked about Shayne Gostisbehere, talking about Brandon Bussi. Now we are getting to the meat and potatoes of a very interesting debate discussion of should one of these guys be, either one of these guys should be the first star of the month for the Hurricanes, or should both of these guys have been in the 3? And I'm really curious to get everyone's comments here, because for me, my personal pick for first star of the month for the Hurricanes in the month of November is Seth Jarvis. I had him when I did the Hockey Writers edition of this for the written content over there at thehockeywriters.com. I had Sebastian Aho as the second star of October, Seth Jarvis first star of October. I have Seth Jarvis back once again as the first star in November. I did have that debate in the written form as well about why Sebastian Aho could have a case to be the first star or also part of the 3. And this is where, for me, it becomes very interesting, because when you look at Seth Jarvis, 15 games, 8 goals, 3 assists, 11 points, +1, 7 even strength, 1 shorthanded goal, 3 even strength assists, 44 shots on goal, 18.2% shooting percentage, 277 minutes and 25 seconds of time on ice, which on average, 18 minutes and 29 seconds. He had 6 blocks, 21 hits, 9 takeaways. Now, that sounds really good, because you're talking about a guy who's gotten 8 goals in 15 games, 11 points, a little shy of a point per game, but he got a shorthander. He's got the assist. He's got the shooting percentage up there. He's playing almost 18 and a half minutes per game on average over that 15-game stretch. Throwing hits, blocking shots, stuff like that. He's the Swiss Army knife for the Carolina Hurricanes or Rod Brind'Amour. Now, this, and the fact, too, if you look at what he's done for the Hurricanes as well, you're talking about a guy who leads the team in goals with 15. He's almost doubled Sebastian Aho's 8. 15 goals in 25 games, that speaks a lot for Seth Jarvis. Assist-wise, yeah, he's tied for 7th on Andres Svechnikov and a few other guys. Points-wise, 22 points in 25 games. Aho, 24 in 25 games. But you're talking, power play goals. He is tied with Miller and Aho and Nikolai Ehlers for 1 power play goal. Ghost and Svech, 2 and 4. But Jarvis leads the team in shorthanded goals with 2. Game-winning goals with 4. Overtime goals with 2. So that's why it's kind of like, we're talking about the month in general, but I think you also have to add the context of the season as well. So this could be a discussion of, okay, well, if we're talking about the month of November, it should be just November without talking about the full season as well. So far, 25 games in. And I can agree with that. But for me, it's also you have to have the context of the culmination of what's going on too, because there can be a guy who could have a great month, but overall the season's been kind of for him. For me, Seth Jarvis has been the guy who's been a very big piece of the Hurricanes' success. And that's not taking anything away from Sebastian Aho, because Aho does lead the team in points with 24, leads the team in assists with 16. And he's, second on the team in goals with 8, but you're talking 1 power play goal, no shorties, 1 game winner, 1 overtime. Yeah, Sebastian Aho is having a great season for the Hurricanes. If you look at his numbers in November, 4 goals, 9 assists, 13 points in 15 games, +4. 3 even strength, 1 power play goal, 5 even strength assists, 3 power play assists, 1 shorthanded assist, but 10% shooting percentage, 300 minutes and 47 seconds of ice time, 20 and a half minutes, 4 blocks, 10 hits. There is an argument to be like, okay, well, numbers wise, Sebastian Aho has 13 points compared to Jarvis's 11. He's got more assists than Jarvis in terms of that too, because you're talking about 9-3, but Jarvis has double the goals. It's only 2 points less. He's got a shooting percentage that's 8.2% better than Aho. Aho's only had 40 shots on goals. Seth Jarvis has had 44. He's taken, 68 total shots attempted, and Aho's had 80 shots attempted. And, he has played almost 2 more minutes than Seth Jarvis. And that's just on an average for the month. But that's why I can see that there's an argument, okay, maybe Sebastian Aho could be the first star, or both these guys could be in the top 3. And I'm not disagreeing with that. There's a lot of guys who could be in this 3 stars of the month. And that's what makes it tough when you have guys like Brandon Bussi playing so well that he goes undefeated, gets a shutout, his first ever shutout in his career. You have to put him there. Shayne Gostisbehere played 5 fewer games. He has to be in there because he's over a point per game guy as a defenseman for the Hurricanes. Could you say Sebastian Aho should be there more than Seth Jarvis just because it's 2 more points? 6 more assists? Yeah, you could make that argument for 13 points compared to 11. 6 more assists. We look at Seth Jarvis. You're talking about 4. You're talking about double the goal total. You're talking about being more, 18.2% shooting compared to 10% when you've taken 68 shots for Jarvis compared to 80 for Aho, but 40s hit the net for Aho and 44s hit it for Jarvis. There are some comparisons where one guy is a little bit better than the other in certain aspects, but I think when you look at the season overall, yeah, Aho has 2 more points. He does have more assists overall, 16-7. But you look at the goal total, 15-8. You're talking, shorthanded goals, game winners, overtime winners. There's a lot of, things that you can look at that. So for me, I feel like that Seth Jarvis has been more noticeable than Sebastian Aho, and that's not a bad thing. They've both been noticeable. But you can definitely tell when Seth Jarvis is doing his thing all 200 feet of the ice in both ways. And Sebastian Aho does that as well, but I think it's a very tough debate when you look at who's – because, they're on the same team. You can say who's better than the other. It's about who had, I guess, a more impactful month. And, yeah, points-wise, well, it's points. It's Aho. You got to go by the point totals. You got to go by the assist. It's not just goal scoring. And you could say that. But for me, it's a tough scenario to put yourself in because, okay, well, who would you put in over the other one? And that's why I think that debate like this would be very interesting, of who would you put in over who. So in the comments, if you're on YouTube or on social media, let me know. Would you put Sebastian Aho as the first star over Seth Jarvis? Would you put Seth Jarvis over Aho? Or would you put both these guys in? And then if that's the case, would you take Gostisbehere or Bussi? So I would love to see everyone's comments. But for me, this is where it's either guy could be one, both guys could be in. It's just I think other guys who've had impactful months definitely need to be there, and it's just kind of like, okay, who do you if you have to keep Ghost and Bussi in, who's one, Jarvis or Aho? So I want to see everyone's comments. For me, it's Seth Jarvis, but it's a very close honorable mention should be there as well for Sebastian Aho. But just at the end of the day, I think Jarvis for me has been more of a number 1 star for the Hurricanes. But I would love to see everyone's comments. and see what you guys think about it. Because this is a very interesting debate of like, you're talking about two guys who are leading the way for the Hurricanes in their own right. Assist-wise, goal-wise, overall impact of shorties, power play goals, game winners, overtime winners, stuff like that. So this is a very interesting debate. I would love to hear it from everyone else. But for me, third star, Shayne Gostisbehere. Second star, Brandon Bussi. First star, Seth Jarvis. But there is a very good debate on Sebastian Aho being there as well. And hey, Andres Svechnikov and Nikolai made some good points as well. But that's the great thing about this. A lot of different opinions and possibilities, but really good discussions in debates on how you would look at your 3 stars for the Carolina Hurricanes in the month of November. But guys, this will be the Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Thank you for making your first listen of the day. Why don't you check out the Locked On Aho game night? Every game, every night until the Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. If you want to keep up with me, I'm a One True Zach on X. The podcast is LO_Hurricanes. I'm also on Blue Sky, the Zachary Martin, where if you click the link tree in my bios on both of those sites, you can check out all my written content at thehockeywriters.com. I've been putting out a lot of stuff recently, more importantly, the 3 stars of the month of November in a written format. If you want to check out my other podcasts, it's the Search Cast on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. For Locked On Hurricanes, you can find us on Spotify, Google, Apple, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to your podcast. Make sure you leave a 5-star rating and review because I might just read it on the show. For YouTube, it's Locked On Hurricanes. Subscribe, hit the bell notifications so you don't miss a show. Hit the thumbs up to let me know if you like the show as well. Share with other Caniacs to become everydayers just like you. But hope everyone enjoyed the Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Enjoy your Tuesday. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes.